This is Rodney Paul, and you're tuned in for Art Viewing Adventures. I'm joined by Elvira Dayel. Hey, Elvira,
Either way.
how do you pronounce your last name?
Dayel. Yeah, you said it
Dayel,
right.
so I'm getting that right. Elvira Dayel. And Elvira, you're joining us from Hunters Point, the Navy Shipyard. Am I right?
Yes. I'm in San Francisco, Naval Shipyard. Well, former Naval Shipyard. The Naval
now it is the largest artist community in the United States.
Yeah, that's what I hear. I don't know if there is an official statistics, but people have been throwing. Actually, in the last week there was a discussion, and someone had said there are up to 300 artists. I heard 100. I don't know. It might be somewhere in between. Might be an average.
And we're going to all get a chance to visit you if you're free the last day of April and the first day of May, April 30th, May 1st, open studios. And Elvira, you're going to be there, right?
Yes. Me and majority of the artists open their doors on open studios. It's going to be a spring open studios. We usually have 2 a year. So this one is coming up, end of April, first day of May. It's a weekend, so it's very convenient for the public to come. So it's usually Saturday, Sunday, and sometimes we call it a party on Friday. So kind of like very laid back music. We used to provide food, but not with COVID.
Is the party is the party for just like kind of artists and family and friends, or is it open to the public?
Well, because it's not sort of publicized by sort of the official, I guess, marketers of the event. We do it personally, so we just send it out to whoever we know, whoever wants to open their doors as artists, send invitations. So, I mean, it is open to the public. If someone just incidentally learns it from someone else, they're definitely welcome, and we have the gates open.
Such as present company?
What?
Like folks out here, could they come to the shipyard Friday evening?
Yes, we'd love, we love when public comes. Yes, so
that's great. Well,
welcome.
And you and I met at the last open studio, which was in October, and had a really great time talking. That's why we're doing this program. We're going to start in 1 minute. We're at 12:59.
It's good. And Nikki.
So hi, Paco. Paco, you're such a loyal participant in these programs. And I know you're also excited about the rock history program that will be this evening, 6 o'clock.
Actually.
So I've got it. We're at 1 o'clock, and I think we should officially get started. So this is Art Viewing Adventures. I'm Rodney Paul, joined by Elvira Dayel. But Nikki Trasvina is our host from the Community Living Campaign. Nikki, why don't you kick us off?
Okay, I was just so enthralled with our calendar. We're the Community Living Campaign, and we're a nonprofit in San Francisco, and Paco's got his also, yay. And we're the Community Living Campaign. We're a nonprofit that supports seniors and people with disabilities in San Francisco. And we started out by doing exercise classes for people. And now we're all over Zoom 6 days, sometimes even 7 days a week with exercise, art programs like this. Lots of information that pertains to our communities. And we give out a calendar every other month. It's a 2-month calendar. You can get it either online. I'll put our link in the chat, or you can get it by mail. If you want to mail it to me, want it mailed to you, let me know. I'll put my email in the chat. Anyway, we do these types of activities every day, even through the evening. Tonight, we've got another very popular program coming up, which is our music program, History of Rock and Roll. And tonight from 6 to 7:30, it's going to feature Nina Simone. So that should be very interesting. And that's also part of our, Black History Month. Happy last day of Black History Month. And we're going to be busy in May with Women's History Month. And we have a special event that I'm doing with my colleague Olivia for the Cesar Chavez holiday. So we have lots of interesting stuff, but this is one of my favorites, coming to hear Rodney, who has brought so many interesting guests that have really enlightened us and enlarged our world when it comes to knowing about local art and art in San Francisco that is internationally acclaimed. So Rodney, thank you. Take it away.
Well, thanks a lot, Nikki. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my slides. Give me just a second. Make sure I get on the right slide. And that'll be a good one for introducing our guest. So our viewing ventures, we've been going for about 2 years now.
Yep.
And we've done a different show twice a month. And one of the great privileges for me has been meeting some of our local San Francisco artists and talking to them and then doing presentations on their work. And that's what we're going to get to do today. So I'm joined by Elvira Dayel, who is an artist in the Hunters Point Shipyard artist community, which is the largest artist community in the United States. Elvira, how are you doing today?
Well, I'm doing good. I'm doing good, but yeah, in light of
we can talk about it.
It's
So Elvira, I think it's an important part of your history. You're an immigrant, and you immigrated from the Ukraine in the mid 1990s, and this is a really tough time for your country. And I just want to say, I think all of us are thinking about the Ukraine right now, and you know. I do think it's interesting that you came here and you became a visual artist. So we'll talk about some of that history you've had. But I think maybe we should just start off by looking at some of one of your paintings and talking about it. So, I want to mention, we met at the Hunters Point Shipyard Open Studio event in October, but there's going to be another one coming up at the end of April, in April 30th and May 1st. And you will be there. And we're going to talk a little more about that later, but I just wanted to get that on everybody's radar. It is this really interesting place, the shipyard, which is right on the bay. It's going to eventually be part of the Bay Trail, but they're doing a lot of decontamination. There's radioactivity there. And you are in building 117, and you're there right now, right?
yes.
And you were able to get better Wi-Fi in building 117 to do the show. So thanks for doing that. But we're going to come back to this slide. I just want to make sure it's on everybody's radar that you're not just going to get to hear from Elvira and see some of her paintings, but you'll have the opportunity to go if you want to visit her studio in April. But let's start by talking about this painting. Everyone who tunes in, you guys know, we like this to be really interactive. And so I want to invite you to share some thoughts, like what are we looking at here? What are some of where's your eye drawn when you first look at this painting? And you can either unmute and say your thoughts, or you can also raise your hand and be called on, or you can put them in the chat. And Leslie says, oh, it makes her think of the Handmaid's Tale. So you're noticing these figures in these like white outfits with hoods, right? So that makes you think of that. Thanks for that, Leslie. Other thoughts? Maybe Paco. What are your thoughts on what we're looking at right now?
You know what? This drawing on the middle, actually, it looks like like a penis for men.
Looks like a what for men?
Yes. This one, a drawing too.
So you're.
Okay.
I didn't get.
Yeah, I'm having a little trouble understanding, Paco, but I heard the word drawing. Did you? Because one of the things we notice is like these lines. It's painting. Yeah, it's a painting, like, but also kind of a drawing too.
Virgin Mary.
The Virgin Mary. So almost like you're noticing like maybe a religious, like some religious imagery, right?
Maybe because of
like
dress.
imagery, no?
Yeah, I thought it looked like two nuns.
Or some nuns. So again, a religious kind of idea there. Kevin and Peter are saying like there's a trail of blood. So you're noticing like red. And we're going to see a lot of red in Elvira's work. And we'll ask her about that. And one of the things we talked about, Elvira, when you and I were kind of meeting and getting our thoughts together on this, is like, how do people react to your work before maybe they see a title, before they hear anything about it from you? So I was really like to mine the works for your reactions to them. But Elvira, should we go ahead and show them the title?
Excuse me, Rodney. This one, that drawing apparently that looks like a Hershey's chocolate.
Hershey's chocolate. Oh, like what? So what? Like the color?
Yeah, the
Or
color.
a Hershey's Kiss, maybe? Like these
Yeah.
things. Oh, these things can be Hershey's Kisses. That's very interesting. So the title is I've Become Comfortably Numb, which those of you who are Pink Floyd fans may find that intriguing. And Elvira, like, tell us more, like, when did you do this piece? And what were some of the thoughts that were kind of going through your mind as you created it?
Yeah, so this piece was done for a show actually last year, 2020, and the title of the show, and it was congruent also with the COVID-19 pandemic and everybody kind of being sheltered in place, and it was art in the time of the corona. So there was a lot of art from artists from local community that was produced for that show, and it felt the times felt very kind of disturbing and sort of very politicized, and there were camps who believed in science and camps that rejected the science, and this idea about vaccination and even sheltering in place or wearing masks or things like that. So there are elements of that in the work. There is definitely a blood trail and sort of the rejection, I guess, of scientific evidence and sheltering always entailed loss of human life and or dire sort of health consequences. And so there is that in the work. And the figures, they are kind of lit, like you can see. And I'm standing at, so the work is here. You can see how the scale of it, but you can see how the light is kind of coming from almost at the face, and then it's sort of kind of darkens, I guess. And then there's this the Hershey's Kisses. They are actually kind of flasks. They're experimental science lab flasks, and they act here as lanterns in a way, but they're not really lit up. They are there, but there is this sort of dichotomy, I guess, of where things are. There's a lot of misunderstanding or questions or indeterminants in people's minds. So, and the background, the sort of orange background. So if you guys probably remember, all of this was happening at the time of like really terrible California fires, right? Like we had this crazy apocalyptic day in September, was it? I remember it was Wednesday, and I think it was September. And
the day of orange, right?
It was like Martian environment. Like it felt like it was not even habitable for humans. Like when you woke up in the morning and you walked out and you felt like it was still kind of dusk. It was at night, but you knew it was morning because. And the street lights were still on because the sensors were not triggered to turn off. That's how dark it was in the outside. So yeah, so all of this kind of compounded into this piece.
So it's kind of like a document of like the mood of 2020. It's just like a real ominous feel to this piece, I think.
Yeah. So this piece was in the show that I mentioned, and there was a lot of like really heavy work. It was an international competition, so there was local artists, but there were some works I remember from New York, actually. And yeah, it was at the New Museum. That's a museum in Los Gatos. New museum.
Yeah, Leslie says, referring to that Orange Day in September 2020, that was the day that broke me. And it's really something I don't think any of us will forget. And so it's interesting to see how your art reflects the times we've been living through.
Yeah.
Why don't we move to another piece? And let me ask a question of the audience. Like, what is the mood? Like, is there a mood to this piece? What is it like? What's your reaction to it? And either in chat or feel free. We're not a big group, so if you want to just unmute and speak up, that's welcome too. I can, feels a little sad to me, says Leslie. I'm kind of intrigued. I'm intrigued by like the relationship between these figures. They are, to me, I see them as figures, and then like these things above them. There's a message to the viewer, Marcia says. I find it playful, Pamela says. So yeah, and then I feel happiness from Nikki. So it's interesting. There's different reactions to it. Paco, go ahead and unmute and tell us your thoughts.
You know what? That reminds me like how to reflect and with ourselves. Like somebody is dead too. Like this person, apparently.
So you heard you talk about reflecting, is that right?
Yes, Rodney.
Because it's interesting that you have these 5 circles. 4 of them are one color and one of them is white. So yeah, Leslie's saying someone is missing. Looks like someone is different from the others, like infected. So interesting. Again, some thoughts along the lines of maybe pandemic or something. I found it. I did like the playful. Like for me, I found it kind of whimsical. It seems to me to have a lighter mood than the piece we were just looking at. And then again, we see like this use of the color red that Elvira, you seem to like using red a lot in your paintings, but then contrasted with this gray background.
Yeah.
And other thoughts before we reveal the title of this?
You know what, this me, Rodney? It looks like a pin and needle, actually.
Say again, a paint.
A pin.
A pin, yeah. They could be pins, couldn't they? They could be like enormous pins. Almost makes me think of like the Rene Magritte, where he has like things that are kind of unusual sizes. So that's Marcia said, I thought of Tootsie Pops or balloons. Yeah, I do get like kind of a balloon sense from this. So Alvaro, should I go ahead and show the title?
Sure.
Each one must have a dream.
Oh.
So how does that make us think differently of this once we see that title? Each one must have a dream. I mean, so
like
are these
fun
things
too, Rodney. Like having fun.
having fun, hopefully fun dreams. Some have dark dreams, Kevin and Peter say, yes. Yeah, so are these different dreams? Are they dark dreams? And then maybe this one's a lighter dream. The balloon is the dream. It's far from us, but within view. Yeah, I've had a lot of dreams during like COVID kind of inspired all these really strange dreams. I think we were processing this difficult and strange time we were in. So what would you, I'll read this other comment. I still think balloons work. The white one is the important one. So Elvira, one of the things you and I talked about is how, as an artist, you will create images and put them out in the world, and people will interpret them in different ways. And you don't have a whole lot of control over that. But it must be intriguing for you to just kind of hear these reactions to your work. So so tell us more about like the inspiration behind this and
Yeah.
what
I think
you were thinking of.
a comment to what you just said. Yes, the art is out in the world, and I definitely, always like to understand what people think about it, right? And I think here people are kind of hitting it on the nail is hit on the head. I think it's all of these things. It's true that the piece is very sort of minimal, right? There's this horizon line. There's gray for the sky, red for the land, and there are five figures, and each one has their balloon, their dream. That's exactly what you guys talked about, and they're kind of floating, and people have asked me, so is the empty one, is it the empty, is this balloon empty, the white one, or has it been emptied already, or is it about to be filled, right? So it's all a matter of perspective, how sort of, I guess, where you are at the moment, in your life, in a certain situation. And I hope, and someone had said that, I hope this piece gives hope. And there's also an interesting kind of a little story after this piece was made. There was a couple who recently got married, and they were given for one of their presents was money, but somebody who gave them the money, this present, monetary present, they said, you cannot buy anything for yourself but art. You have to buy this piece together, and you're gonna seek it, commission it, whatever, but this money is only for an artwork that will be in your home. And so this couple, they saw this piece and actually one of the open studios, and they bought the piece. Now it's in Oslo, and so I think for them, as they're starting their life together, I think this piece is giving them hope. So, and they're both.
I also think that's a great story. I love that story about what a great gift. Like you can give someone a some object, but they're going to be living with your artwork, seeing it every day, and really like spending time with it, getting to know it.
Yeah, I mean when
so
yeah. But when
it's funny, we're going to a
the
wedding not long after the open studios, and it does occur to me that would be a great idea. I do like the idea of letting someone choose their own the art that they want.
Yeah.
I mean, Gail says
when they acquired the piece, and for this, I kind of
some comments in chat. I see Yuri, am I saying else says, great gift idea, cool story, thanks for sharing. Yes. And Pamela says she may want to do that, and I like that idea a lot too. So Leon asks, what's the technique here? So what are your materials? How did you make this?
Yeah, so mainly I use these are drawings. So this one is a drawing, and what's behind me and everything in the studio now, there are drawings, and they're soft pastel. So basically like these sticks of pigment, and and it's very chalky and very dusty, but very beautiful. There's so much kind of rich color in them, and I really enjoy working with them. So I started back when I was in college. It was kind of I knew about the medium. I tried it a little bit here and there, and then there was sort of a project, and ever since I kind of fell in love with it. So this is soft pastel and on paper. So yeah.
So I see the pastel. Oh, hopefully let me know if you guys are having any trouble hearing me. Good. I'm on Wi-Fi. I'm coming to you from a hotel room, actually. But I see the pastel in these colors. This is like a different kind of technique with the pastel, Elvira.
No, well, I mean, some work, some pieces in some work have sort of I give them three-dimensionality for a certain idea, but no, it's all soft pastel. There's no mixed media in this work. I do mixed media with watercolor. Actually, soft pastel works really well with watercolor. So I do that sometimes. In fact, I don't know if you can see it. There is one piece here that's a mixed media piece. So yeah, it's soft pastel and and the background is all watercolor. But generally, I'm a little bit of a purist in that sense. I've been, but I'm, kind of going back and forth, I guess. But yeah, it's just do it by hand, and I don't smudge. Like you can see people work differently with pastel. It's a wide range of techniques, I guess, that you can use, and you work with your hands, and you can kind of help with your fingers to work the medium into paper. But in this piece and a lot of my work, I try to kind of stay somewhat on the surface. So I don't really fill every kind of white background of the paper. So you can see here, it's kind of not finished, but that's finished. That's how I like when the paper, like you can see through the pigment, you can still see the paper, and that kind of gives them work sort of freshness, I feel like, not overworked. Yeah, so this
Is it a special paper that you use?
Yeah, I use watercolor paper. You can use it on all sorts of paper. I prefer watercolor paper because it has, and also cold press. Because it has a lot of tooth to it. It's not smooth. So when you go with pastel, you go with chalk, right? It's chalk essentially. Like it's not filled entirely, and that's my kind of preference. And also watercolor paper has this sort of weight to it. It's thick. Well, I'm using a 120-pound paper, 175-pound paper. Yeah, so it's thick. It has tooth. Yeah, I love the texture. So it's very pleasant to work.
We have a couple questions that have been asked in chat. Do you fix it when you're done? I guess so. When you're done with the pastel, is there something you would apply? And also, how is the final work mounted? Is it under glass?
Yes, yes, and yes. So some people work with fixative throughout the process. So they would put a certain initial layer and they spray it. There are different fixatives too on the market. You can buy different ones. I don't do that because it seals the sort of the toothiness, the texture of the paper. So I prefer, I work complete the piece and then I completely seal it. But I seal it if someone is working and they want to know. It's a workable fixative. It's not a kind of like a finished fixative, so that it doesn't alter the color very much, because some of the fixatives, they're so potent and they start making the color a lot of times like really vibrant or yellowish. I mean, the fixatives have become much better over the years, for sure. But yeah, I don't want the colors to change. So yeah, I use workable fixatives, quite a bit of it. So yeah. Mounted, yeah. So the work is all mounted. Like here, you can see, and a lot of my work is under. It's all under glass, and it's floated. So come to Open Studio, I'll show you more.
Yeah, well, that's definitely what we want to encourage everyone to do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You may be able to see it, but there's like a border. It's floated. It's kind of attached in the back with a removable, basically double sticky tapes, but they're archival. Yeah, so it's just kind of sitting in there and you don't really see how it's attached. I like my work to sort of have this kind of freedom. I don't want to usually, like, people you can put mats and things like that. I never do that. It just kind of frame and then the work so that it kind of works on its own. But yeah, it's a drawing, it's work on paper, so you have to protect it with glass. I mean, in fact, I think all work needs to be protected, well, 2D, like even paintings, but they're not as susceptible to damage as, for example, work on paper.
So I want to move on to some other images. We did get a comment, and I know like you and I talked about seeing surrealism in your work and how you find that label a little confining, but I like that. I do have that sense too. Like there's some, like it's kind of this dreamlike environment that you've created. So let's move on to like, here's another piece of yours. And what is like, we're looking at a diptych. It's pretty big over the Red Sea. It's there with you, right?
Yes.
There it is, right behind you.
Cool.
And again, I guess I'll ask, I like that question. Like, what do you get a mood from this piece? What is it making you think of? What do we think we're looking at? I already did tell you the a title, but I don't think that's going to give too much away. What's the reaction that folks have to this? I will say, first of all, that this is like when I walked in your studio and saw this is like the thing that really grabbed me. I found it really interesting. Leon says he sees fractals in this. Gail gets a sense of threatening, like kind of an ominous sense. Leslie sees a journey. Leslie, tell me more about that. Tell me more about the journey that you see in this.
Let's see. So I'm feeling like there's kind of these mountains off to the right, maybe where I've come from, and then there's this sense of movement to me, of like through the middle, and that I've got some work still to do on this journey.
Yeah. So yeah, it's making you think of like it's really a landscape, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I found it like, like, again, I don't want to put the surreal label on this, but it does make me think of these, Salvador Dali. I think that Ron had mentioned that in his comment, that, you've got these surreal places, and this seems to be a part with that. Kevin and Peter see rubble from a collapsed building. So some sort of, some kind of, maybe something's happened. Maybe there's been some kind of disaster or something like that here. Other thoughts? Anyone else want to share other perspectives on this? And Elvira, let's go back to you and tell us more about when did you create this, and kind of what was going on with you when you created it?
This piece was finished last year, but I started it some time ago, and it was kind of like on and off. I usually work on the wall just like this. It was kind of on and off my walls over some time. It kind of took a while and a lot of sort of contemplation, thinking. But yeah, somebody mentioned in the chat that they see war, and I definitely feel that what's happening right now in Ukraine is kind of like is that. I mean, a lot of use of red in my work kind of goes back to sort of, I mean, the earth is bleeding, it's hurting, and then there's this sort of dark force over the landscape. And I don't want to ruin anybody's mood, but I feel very much like there is this, someone mentioned mountains, and mountains, or I call it downtown. It's basically a built out high-rise, kind of like put together, and then there are these sort of ghost buildings right next to them. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like this compounded pre-pandemic, during pandemic, and kind of like a very difficult situation that's built up since last November in Ukraine. Yeah, so there's a lot to it. I mean, yes, a lot of my landscapes are kind of barren. Some of them have figures, and then there's still some work. I mean, this one has no human presence, but we definitely, I mean, I definitely put it in there as like these constructed pieces, but there are no identifiable figures, right? And I guess maybe that kind of brings this sort of surreal feeling where it's kind of desolate in a way. Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if this is rubble, but I always feel like the stones, like I have stones in some of my work, and it's kind of like a building material in a way. Like it's the parts that we can use to construct, to make stuff. So it wasn't rubble for me, but I guess it could be viewed as such. It's yeah.
Oh, let me read a few of the comments in chat. So Kathy says, when Leslie said journey, I saw the central object change into a road stretching into the distance. So again, like that idea of like some kind of really ominous landscape, I think. Marcia says, I see a horizon line, so the rubble is at our feet. It once was a standing structure. Its spirit or future expression in the line drawings on the right. So kind of these line drawings here. And I see different orders in universe, structural and more freely flowing. And Pamela asked, well, she asked when you painted this. I think you said it was last year, right, Elvira?
Started, yes. Started and finished, but kind of over time.
Yeah, and I want to validate, that this would make us think of war and what is happening now. I think that's really, the mood of this is definitely an ominous one for me. And, it's interesting how art can help us process some of these things that we're dealing with.
Yeah, there's also, I don't know if you guys can see, but there's on the right-hand side of, well, on the screen, but on the left-hand side here, if you're looking at that, there is like a rainbow that's sort of all covered.
So you were talking about like in this kind of art?
Yeah, right there. Do you see the arch? Kind of like an orange. Yeah.
Oh, right.
Under the scribble scrabble.
Yes, under the scribble scrabble. Exactly. Yeah.
I see Paco, you have your hand raised. Go ahead, Paco.
Generally, I really like this rock, how the rock is really deformed too.
So you really like the way the rock is looking, Paco?
Yes, like in volcanoes too, generally.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times.
Like
I said, I like to keep my landscapes, like, the sky, the kind of the ground, sort of very simple. And then sometimes I put in a render some elements as sort of three-dimensional, or even use color. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, but use sort of natural. I mean, here, kind of, you may imagine like you can see something like this in nature. So this sort of the color of the stone. Yeah, but there, I mean, I thought about this piece too, and to me, it's also a question. Are these like this red? Is it what kind of surface is it? Like for me, is it water? Is it land? Is it soil? And I kind of came to the conclusion, because I'm also a viewer of my own work as I process a lot of stuff and then working on it. I'm kind of like, when I'm done, I'm also looking back at it and analyzing it. And I feel like I can't really define it fully. Like, I think it's some kind of medium, but it's definitely like this sort of really kind of potent and yeah.
I love that idea of you being a viewer of your own work, and that like what you see maybe after spending time with it may change. And it reminds me of like Wayne Thiebaud had these amazing landscapes of the California Delta. And, some people said, well, that kind of makes me think of the human impact on the natural environment. And he said, well, when I painted it, I didn't really think of it that way. But now I do, this would have been like 20 years later.
Yeah.
So even though you're the creator, your relationship to it can change.
Yes, but also when we make things, stuff is happening, and then those events, they eventually channel into something larger, hopefully not destructive, but whatever it is, when we're working through, prior to that event, I think that makes it into the work inadvertently. And yeah, and then we see it afterwards. It's almost foreseeing it, but you are it. Yeah, I don't know. Kind of.
It takes on a life of its own. It's like you give birth to the art, and then it has a life of its own.
Yeah.
I want to read a couple more comments. Leon says, I saw the buildings as lava formations and the rubble as talus, which reminds me of my hiking experiences. That's interesting. Like some people saw kind of a man-made scene, and some others saw something more natural. And then Ron says, it looks dangerous and hostile. You wouldn't want to stand there. The sky is full of needles. So it's kind of like a forbidding landscape. Let's move on to another piece. So again, let's go. I still like this question of like, what is the mood? What is the mood of this painting? Spend a little time looking at it. You don't have to answer right away, but we've had different reactions to the different paintings we've seen so far. So yeah, what is the mood of this? What are you noticing about it? What is it suggesting to you? I've loved a lot of the comments that have come in so far. So keep them coming. And I can tell you mine, but I don't want to give, Elvira and I've already talked about these paintings. So I feel like I already have like inside knowledge of this. But one thing, one of the things I really like is the colors that you use, Elvira. And you use that red a lot, but you use it in different ways.
Yeah. I have my favorite reds. There's definitely a kind of like a favorite palette that I always come back to. I kind of steer away, and then it brings me back to it. It's the grays, it's the reds, but different reds, different grays too. Greens, yeah.
So we've got some comments. Gail says, the old nut tree had fabric much like the background in this piece. Red, multi-vertical lines. That's a cool memory. Sherry says it's kind of contemplative. A pile of toilet paper, she says. Little toilet paper rolls. I didn't see that, but I see it now. And Leslie also agrees. For her, it's kind of contemplative. When you guys say contemplative, I want to know a little more about that. Like, why are you using that word? And just expand on that if you could.
So this is Leslie. To me, like I was identifying with the figure there, looking up at the what looks like suns. I think some other people said the same thing. And that when I said contemplative, it was like the way I feel when I'm watching a sunset or something like that. Like, like introspective and, maybe hopeful, happy.
Yeah, and I see like others agreeing with you. Like Leon says, for me, this one is joyful. Love the figure looking at the sun/moon. And Sherry says, I love the suns. You guys are going to enjoy seeing the title when we reveal that to you. It's hopeful, maybe crazy, busy civilization to the left, and the soul person looking up, admiring the simplicity of nature. So they've kind of gotten away from all this busyness, right? And then someone says dream. It's another dream-like image. A storage of table legs in a wood shop. says Roger. Yeah, that's cool. Ron says it looks like a scene from a Star Wars movie. Figure on the right standing on a tower overlooking an alien city on a planet with 2 suns. Dream in a urban jungle. And Sherry says, I'm using contemplative because of the person looking up and over. The toilet paper image is because of the round shapes in the panic during the pandemic. There we go, back to the pandemic. It interests me that some of the shapes are square. And Leon says, also gives me a sense of an artist standing on their drawing tool with a bunch of pens, etc., next to them. So, Elvira, like, what is is that fun for you to hear, like, all these different
It's super
reactions?
fun. This is great. I love it. I mean, they're very close to what I was thinking. Well, toilet paper. This was pre-pandemic, but somebody had told me they had COVID, and they said afterwards they recovered, and they said, now I know why there was such an agony to get toilet paper. but no, this is a pre-pandemic. Yeah, the shapes, I guess they do look like.
So this one was done like what, 2019, 2018, something like that?
This is older. This is older. I can't remember the dates, but a few people said, oh yeah, you haven't revealed the title.
There we go. Double sun. So you guys definitely see that.
Yeah.
But I'll give you the size too.
It's
big.
Yeah, sort of. I mean, the people, you guys got it exactly right. It's a moment of a kind of solitude where you're observing an event on Earth, let's say, but an event that cannot happen, and only, I guess, you can contemplate it, like, sort of the double suns. But there are planets, of course, with 2 suns, or systems with 2 suns, but not here. So yes, it's kind of contemplative. Yeah, you're away from your surrounding, you're just sort of in your own universe. Yeah, that's what it is for me.
Some more comments. The solo figure, sorry, scrolling away from me. The solo figure is contemplating taking a dive off of the podium where he or she will land. Which aperture will they aim for? So they're going to jump into that. Leslie loves the background. So Sherry wants to ask, what did you mean the pile of objects to be? So I'll let you answer that, Elvira. I always feel like I don't believe the artist gets the last word. Like, if you guys see stuff, to me, that's valid. But if you want to, we want to ask Elvira what you saw when you created it. I'll go ahead and allow that.
Yeah, I think, to me, a lot of times I feel like the environment is overbuilt. I'm an environmentalist at heart, and yeah, and I always try to kind of, and even kind of being in Shipyard, it gives such a good perspective. Like, you don't hear traffic here, you can hear birds, and you're still in the city technically, but you're away from from the noise and from overbuilt environment. So I think I was just trying to get away.
I mean, and you and I talked a bit about you being at the shipyard and what an interesting place it is. I mean, it's this place that was, it's been hugely impacted by the military. And in fact, it has radioactivity from some really terrible things that the military did, the Operation Crossroads.
Yeah.
And yet it's also like right on the bay, and there's all this, there's the Canada geese that like to hang out there, and it's kind of a special place.
It's a special place. Big birds come. There's, the shipyard is paved, but there are some patches of land to the sides where it's, marshlands, basically. It's the coast. So there are lots of big birds come, and it's, their feeding ground, it's their landing ground, it's their possibly hatching. I mean, maybe they hatch, they have their nests. So it's amazing to watch. Yeah, lots of Canadian geese. Unlike other birds, they don't mind a lot of the paved like asphalt around here. There's a stream that goes through, natural stream, and the pavement actually kind of goes over the stream, but there is a ravine that was created so for the stream to fall into the bay. And the geese go there for drinking, water, fresh water, and they just hang out, by the stream. And yeah, on asphalt, they just sit there, and sometimes many come, like just like a whole flock can come, or sometimes it's just one or two. So yeah, so it's habitat for the birds and animals, but it's kind of a getaway for me and many artists who
Yeah.
are here.
Yeah, I felt like one of my motivations for going to the open studios was I just really wanted to be in that place. I like going to all places on the bay. So, and then to hear to see how it impacts some of the art. And we'll see. I'll show you a couple examples of another artist that's in the same building as Elvira, who has clearly been inspired by being at the shipyard. But let's keep going with your work. And I want to, let's see. Here's a different image that does not have the red.
No.
And other reactions, like what are we, again, what is the mood? What are we seeing? This time we only have one sun, I think. So what do you guys, where's your eye drawn when you first look at this? Let me ask you that. So Kevin and Peter are noticing the people, like this group here, the figures, the golden ropes and the people. And it's interesting, the ropes and the people are the same color. And this is a group of people. To me, they all seem like they're looking in the same direction. They're suspended in some kind of object. The people aren't looking at the sun. Their backs are toward the sun. They have turned their back to the sun. Leslie says it's like a family. Oh, that's great, because they're all maybe because they're all different sizes. A family bound together. All the figures seen in only one of the two objects. So yeah, we've got like two of these, whatever these things are. And again, I don't want to put the surreal label on your work, Elvira, but it is interesting that like we're looking at places like it suggests a place, but it's not like a place that we know. It's like some of it's familiar, some of it's unfamiliar. The clear plates are impactful. So yeah, like they're on plates, they're clear. Other thoughts? Should we review? Oh, go ahead.
I'm so intrigued about that rope. Apparently, it really looks like a necklace.
It looks like say the word again, Paco.
Really looks like a necklace. Literally.
A necklace.
A necklace, yeah. Okay, I like that. A necklace. Yeah. Oh, it could be a necklace with like a portrait of the family on it, maybe.
Yes, of course. I really like these people generally, these people. They are like standing and forming their line.
I like this comment from Pamela. I love this, but don't know what to say about it. There's a lot here. So I like that. It's a very intriguing image that you can spend a lot of time looking at. Don't know how accurate I'm seeing the color, but really like the quality of the blue. Maybe partly a reaction to the other reds. Elvira, when we show this on the computer, how do we do? Do we keep the same colors pretty much?
The blue is a little bit denser, but overall, I think the relationship is there. Yeah, the sun is hazy. It's good. It's close enough.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question to ask, because the experience of seeing something on a computer is not the same as seeing it in person. Another reason to go to open studios or to go to museums to see, those works.
It's the best, always the best to look at it in person, but yeah.
And then Yuri says, there is an invitation to step on the empty ring. So the empty ring is kind of, yeah, suggesting like people should be there. So should I go ahead and reveal your title?
Sure.
In the Wrinkle of the Crankle.
I don't know if that gives any suggestion to what this is.
It's kind of fun. And it's not, it's still fairly big, right? That's 30 by 22 is still pretty big.
Yeah.
Leslie says no help at all. I would think,
I didn't think.
well, and Magritte was famous for like, he apparently would, he'd do a painting and then he'd get his friends together and give them a lot of wine and then ask them to just throw out like titles for his painting. And then he would pick the one he liked the best. And it didn't necessarily have to have anything to do with the painting. It might just be a title he really liked. I mean, he had, in my opinion, he had great titles that sometimes were like, they're part of the artwork and yet they kind of take you in a different direction.
A lot of times the title comes as I work on it. And if I don't write it down right there, like when I thought of it, it just comes and goes. So I'm like, then I have to think about something else. But I think titles in probably majority of my work are part of the work. Yeah.
Do you ever do any untitled? Is that like part of your, like, do you have any untitled paintings?
So here's an interesting few situations where I felt like titles were too traumatizing. So I, for shows, I said they were untitled. But in fact, all my work has titles. They're like, yeah.
I think the Museum of Modern Art has like 2,500 works in their collection that are untitled.
Untitled. Okay.
So I sometimes call them the San Francisco Museum of Untitled, or SF-UMA, the Untitled Museum of Art.
Oh, that's great. It's
we-
an inside story.
We have some definitions of crankle that Sherry dug up. You guys can just see that in chat. I think for you, it was just kind of like a word you just
I
like.
didn't even know if it was even a word, but and I'm like, how do I spell it? Sometimes I spell it with a C, sometimes like CK, sometimes, or like, yeah, anyway. I'm glad it's actually crinkle, yeah. In the crinkle of the crinkle. That could be that.
So let's move on to this work. We have, we're getting close. We only have like 5 minutes left. So we'll make this the last one we look at, and then we'll talk about Open Studios. Again, what are we seeing here? What is the mood? Is this another, does this, well, yeah. So what is the mood? How does it compare with the other things? Cowhenge. Leslie, that's great. Like Stonehenge, but Cowhenge.
Right on.
Other thoughts? So noticing this cow here. What else you got? Where is your eye drawn? Like, what do you see first when you look at this? And I always think it's fun, like it is fun to hear like what people's gut reaction is to something. I always consider that really valuable. And I don't think artists often don't get to hear that. Isn't that true, Elvira? Or
Yeah.
do you?
True. But during Open Studios, people do come and they definitely want to share. But of course, you can't. Yeah, you can't have like a long sort of an in-depth discussion like here, I guess. Yeah.
So what's it like when you're in your studio and just people, members of the public, come into your studio? You don't know who they're going to be. Is it an exciting 2 days for you?
Yes, exhausting, exciting. Yes. Yeah, no, I enjoy it. I personally enjoy it. I think everyone who does Open Studios as artists, I think we all enjoy it. Yeah, we like it because we make this work in solitude, most of it. I mean, I'm alone here. I can, there are neighbors and, we talk, but when you make your work, you're sort of alone with your own, thoughts, your world, your ideas. And I mean, I think most of us, as artists. We want to share it with the public. We definitely want. I mean, I don't know if it's. There's kind of like this interesting, always kind of comes up, there's a discussion, this idea. So is the work made for the public? Well, when I make my work, I just can't not make my work. I make it and it's for me, I guess. But I definitely want people to see it.
Yeah, well, I just have to say it was really fun for me to go. And I didn't know you when I went, and I had I talked. There was a bunch of artists that I really enjoyed talking to. But you were definitely like one of the standouts. And so I'm going to just tell everyone, go to Elvira's studio, and we'll skip ahead. This one is called America's Pill Mill, Kettleman City. And yeah, the cow, Kettleman we know is like a major feedlot in the Central Valley. And then someone said, the people look like flowers to me. Sherry said that. So this is a very interesting portrayal of people. Gary Larson, like Nikki says.
After I heard cowhenge, I went automatically.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That is Gary Larson. So we are getting close to the.
I'm raising my hand.
Go ahead, Paco.
Wallaka is also famous for cows, relatively.
Kettleman City is indeed famous for cows. It's not a good place to be a cow.
Kettleman, it's passable. It's generally passable from the I-5 highway.
Yep, you can see it and you can smell it from I-5.
Yes.
Before you reach the grapevine.
So if you'll forgive me, Elvira, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit so we can start telling people a little more about Open Studio, some more of your figures, which I feel embarrassed to go through them so quickly because there's lots of interesting stuff to see. I guess the big takeaway is you'll be able to spend some time with a lot of these images if you go to the Open Studio event. And that's going to be, as I said, April 30th and May 1st, Saturday, Sunday. And we talk, like there's a party Friday evening that is not publicized, but you guys now know about. This is what it looks like there. So it has these old buildings from the military, many of which have the artists in them. Not every single one, because not every single one is really inhabitable. Like this one isn't, but it's really cool to look at. I just think it's interesting, like the state that
it's definitely an experience to be here.
The shipyard is in. I mean, this could be like some kind of really crazy sculpture, this building, but yet it's just a remnant from the military. Oh, post the date of Open Studio again. Sure, we'll go back. So it's April 30th, May 1st. I'm definitely going to be there. Maybe we can have like an art viewing adventure little group, assuming that it's safe to bring together people. We could do that. I like this sign. This really weathered sign that you'll see. And there's a whole bunch of different buildings with the artists in them. You want to really go to 117 because that's where Elvira is. And there's a couple other artists in there that I found really intriguing. There is, I think, like food trucks. So these are the different buildings. 101 is the building that has the most artists. So that's definitely a good one to check out, but they're all good, And so some of the other artists I want to recommend is Randy Beckelheimer, also in 117. I'm a big Robert Bechtel fan, but this is like kind of a different take on the same sort of thing that Robert Bechtel does with houses and cars. And then this is one of the ones he's done of the shipyard. And you'll see a bunch of his shipyard paintings if you go to his studio on building 117. And Subercaso, am I saying that right?
Yeah, Subercaso, yeah.
Subercaso, she's also in building 117, also much more abstract. Elvira, you're kind of you've got some figurative and abstract, and she's fully abstract and kind of very architectural. And we were talking about them being like shadow studies, real interesting artist. And then in Building 101, Carrie Ann Plank was one I visited and enjoyed talking to last time. So some of her images. Last thoughts, Elvira. We'll look forward to seeing you, and people will know that you're a great artist to come and talk to. So I hope some of you will get the chance to go and say, hey, I saw you present on Art Viewing Adventures, and now I'm here in person in your studio.
Thanks for having me. Thank you so much. I enjoyed it so much.
Well, it's fun. It's just fun to talk about art, and it's fun to just like, without knowing too much about it, share our thoughts and then get background from you, the artist. That's really a privilege. So Elvira, thank you very much for coming on Art Viewing Adventures. I'll look forward to seeing you at the Open Studio event.